Hello everybody, thank you for coming today. My name is Isabella Bramley and today I'm going to be showing you my presentation on all the research I've done for my extended project on the topic title, To Research How Our Lifestyles Are Unsustainable, Focusing on Plastic's Impact on Our Environment. So, my inspiration for the topic title came from the fact I've always had a passion for geography and sustainability through seeing firsthand how we are damaging our environment and making our lifestyles very unsustainable because of plastic's huge impact it's having. My passion to explore and educate myself on this topic has made me choose my topic title to research how our lifestyles are unsustainable, focusing on plastic's impact on our environment. So my aims for the project is to educate my audience, making a short, engaging documentary that will hopefully be thought-provoking for my audience. I will be telling my audience through the documentary how plastic is having a huge impact on making our lifestyles in this century very unsustainable. My aim is to include helpful advice in the documentary towards the end to educate my audience on how they can be more sustainable in their lifestyles by cutting down their plastic consumption. Some of my other aims are to include big facts that I think will be shocking for the audience and help them have some thought-provoking ideas on why plastic is bad so they can make a positive change in their lifestyles. So the facts I have chosen to include are: Britain contributes 1.7 million tonnes of plastic yearly, and we only recycle 45% of this plastic. And on average, humans consume 20 kilos of plastic in their lifetime, which is obviously very unsustainable for our lifestyles. And I'm going to aim to include these facts when interviewing my environmentalist for my documentary. So going back to my topic title and why I chose it and why I chose to research this topic came from experiences I've had firsthand seeing why plastic is unsustainable and impacting our lifestyles in a negative way. So living abroad in Asia has given me the experience of seeing all the unnecessary single-use plastic, how it's affecting our marine life and marine animals in a negative way. And also everyone can see in supermarkets the amount of unnecessary plastic packaging there is on things like fruit and vegetables, and which is totally unnecessary and can be very easily stopped. Also information from documentaries such as Blue Planet, and which are very popular documentaries which are available for basically anyone to watch, has led me to see plastic's negative impact on the environment and animals, making me want to research into the topic more and create a thought-provoking documentary to try and strike some change. So my planning was, I had to think about pre-production, production and filming when making the documentary to ensure it gets across the message I wanted it to and was successful in what I wanted to achieve, which was making it engaging and thought-provoking. So in pre-production I created a storyboard of the whole documentary to give me an organised idea of how it's going to look and making me very clear on the idea of how I want the outcome to look. I also did some location scouts for about 4 or 5 locations, going to multiple zero waste stores, visiting some landfills and recycling centres to scout out before I filmed them what it's going to look like and how I'm going to achieve the footage in the way I wanted it to. So in production, that consisted of filming and conducting my interviews in that as well. And post-production was my editing, which I did on Final Cut Pro. where I put it all together and added in my topic titles, which were inspired by other documentaries like Blue Planet, as they were very successful, and for me, I was very engaged in them and it made me think about plastic, so I decided to do the same thing. So my production plan was to go to supermarkets and show all the unnecessary plastic, which I have on the photos there. These are some of the images I took at the supermarket to show the unnecessary plastic. I also planned to get drone shots of a recycling centre with my interviewee who was an environmentalist talking over the top of it as a voiceover. She talked on how much household waste got recycled, therefore it linked back to the recycling centre, so I decided to put those shots in. And I went abroad to Greece and filmed some plastic in the ocean to show how it's affecting marine life, and I also had the environmentalist talk over that, talking about marine life and how we're ending up consuming plastic through the consumption of fish, etc. So some of my resources which helped me in the post-production phase when editing came from YouTube, which was a secondary data source, which I watched some documentaries like this one, The Plastic Problem, which gave me inspiration for the fonts I wanted, as they were very clear and large and very easy to read and engaging. I also read another secondary source, which was an article on why plastic is unsustainable, which gave me lots of information which I had not previously known, which I aimed to include in my documentary, which I did so through the environmentalist interview, and I plan to maybe add a voiceover talking on these facts as well to make it very thought-provoking. I also used internet research for my resource, such as this article on human health and plastic pollution and why it's affecting us. It provided me a lot of information, again, with consuming plastic through microplastics in fish. I followed this up by researching it using other articles which gave me the facts and statistics, such as the large facts that we consume 20 kilos of microplastic in our lifetime, which is obviously very unsustainable. Therefore, I thought it would be a very good idea to put this in my documentary to inform people on this fact and how shocking it really is, and how we need to change and make our lifestyles more sustainable by less plastic consumption. So, my key moments in the making, obviously in pre-production, storyboarding my documentary was a very key moment, as it gave me a very obvious idea on how my documentary is going to look, and it very much helps me with understanding what shots I've got to do next and how it's all going to link together. Finding my environmentalist to interview was a key moment, as it was a very lengthy part of my documentary and provided the audience with many facts, and which would make the documentary thought-provoking and engaging. I also had 2 other interviewees, which you can see there, both of which were from 2 separate zero waste stores, which also was a long part in my documentary. Therefore was a key moment in making the documentary. While abroad in Greece, I gathered a quantitative data study using a quadrat, counting the amount of plastic in the quadrat compared to other areas of the beach. This was a key moment, as it provided me with information on how much plastic actually is around and on the beaches, and the amount of unnecessary plastic there. So I got lots of data and numbers from this, adding into my documentary, providing with more facts. And obviously another key moment was post-production, which was editing and actually putting my documentary together, which made it all come alive. And at this point I was able to realise what I was missing from my documentary, what I had to add in, and what else I needed to do. And from this I realised that I needed a longer introduction, because my documentary jumped straight into an interview, which I thought was a very big jump to start with. So I decided that I wanted an introduction which was a bit slower and a nicer way to ease into my documentary, with some bold music to make people immediately engaged in my documentary and focused on it so they could learn more. So overall, reflecting on my overall process of filming this documentary, I've gained many skills that I wanted to have. I gained interviewing skills, which required me to improve my confidence, asking people I didn't know questions, asking to film them, and it also helped to improve my planning and organisation skills, where I had to plan before the questions I was going to ask them. I originally aimed to develop my editing skills, which I definitely did develop, as I started editing on a new software which I had never previously used, which was a huge challenge for me in this documentary, and this software was Final Cut Pro, which I did struggle with, but I got the hang of it, and therefore it was a new skill that I have learnt. I definitely developed my project management skills, organising meetings and interviews whilst managing my time effectively as well, getting everything done on time and keeping myself on track to producing a successful documentary. Although I had many strengths in my documentary in the process, I also had some weaknesses, which was one of my biggest weaknesses was my indecisiveness, and I had quite a perfectionist attitude towards the footage, so lots of the footage I wasn't happy with, and therefore had to go back and refilm the footage, as it didn't look the way I wanted it to, and I wanted my documentary to be exactly how I pictured it and planned for it to be, obviously with a few changes along the way. But so yes, I had to create some extra time to film more footage, such as the supermarket. I originally went there and I didn't like the footage I got, as there were lots of people in the way and I didn't have their consent for them being in the film, so I had to go back and redo it. Right, so that is my presentation, and I'd like some questions if any of you have any. Yes?
I've got one. So during your research about obviously the consumption of plastic, is there anything you've done in your day-to-day life to reduce it? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, so in my documentary I also put in a household recycler where he talked on what he did as well, and things I also do, like shopping in the zero waste store to reduce my plastic consumption. And in my documentary he talked on how he recycles everything, also shops at a zero waste store, and how he and myself as well make changes in our day-to-day life to reduce our plastic. So yes.
Did you include any links to like some initiatives for like people to get involved in?
Yeah, so at the end it was my goal to educate people on how they can reduce their plastic consumption. So at the end of my documentary I put in ways where people can reduce their plastic consumption, such as shopping at zero waste stores, which I talked on hugely in my documentary, and also interviewed them, how they can recycle their plastic, just do very simple things like bring their own bags to the supermarkets and just own a metal water bottle or something, so they can make a change and reduce their plastic.
What made you want to make a documentary as opposed to writing a dissertation?
So I decided to make a documentary instead because I thought it would provide me with more sufficient challenge, as I have not made many before, whereas I have done many essays and writings about my findings. So I just thought it would be interesting to develop all my skills, such as my editing skills and stuff, by making a documentary instead of a dissertation. So yeah. Anything else, or is that? Thank you for listening to my presentation.